Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is day 2 of our online open house. We'll be doing a week-long series of events tomorrow and Thursday as well, representing each of our graduate degree programs. My name is Jennifer Hewins, and I am the Assistant Director for Graduate Admissions. This session will focus specifically on the MFA Graphic Design program, and I'm joined today by the faculty in the department. With that, I will turn it over to Bethany.
Hello, everybody out there. I'm Bethany Johns. I'm the longtime grad program director. And this is actually my last year in this role. I'll be handing it off to my colleague, Paul Salelis, who has taught in virtually every class in the grad program, has been department head, and is ready for the job.
Hi, everyone, and welcome.
Perfect. So Bethany has about I think a 40-minute presentation that will go into depth about the program at RISD, and then the remaining time we'll leave for a Q&A. So please hold your questions until we get to that portion of the session. And with that, it's all yours,
Ta-da.
Bethany.
Yeah, I'm going to slam through a lot of slides here. And the spirit of this is to give you a sense of where we are, who we are, and the kinds of work that comes out of this program. And I would encourage everybody who's looking at multiple programs, really look at the kind of work that comes out of the program and how it is elicited by the curriculum. So in any case, this is right down the street. This is Providence, Rhode Island, downtown. Um, how come my slides aren't? Oh no, this is a problem. There we go. Um, our graphic design, let me get rid of this. Okay. So our graphic design studio is down the street from that theater on the 5th floor in a building dedicated to grad programs. It's called CIT. It's at 169 Waybosset Street. It's got a gallery on the ground floor for student work called the Koffler Gallery. And other grad programs in the building are interior architecture, digital plus media, and industrial design. There's also an adjoining building that has all of the fine arts people in it. The gallery downstairs is great. We use it for reviews, but it also hosts a biennial for each program of the grad programs at RISD. So our own was just last spring. It was called For Reference Only. The referentiality started on the outside of the building with that vinyl leading to the title wall, which then led inside to the curatorial statement and an index of all the works in the show in black and white. And I just wanted to show you that all of the grads are able to participate in this. And here are many of our 38 grads on that opening night, a little giddy from having it finally mounted. Some shots of the opening itself, which featured screen-based work, print work, interactive, etc. So I'm going to talk about how we have these two programs. There's a 2-year track meant for people with BFAs and equivalent in graphic design and visual communication. And then we have a 3-year track towards the MFA meant for people who are not coming from undergraduate degrees in graphic design. So that 3-year track's first year is meant to build formal and conceptual skills in this core sequence of rigorous design studios that more or less are equivalent to our own undergraduate rigorous design studios. Grad type 1, 2, and 3, grad form 1 and 2, grad type design, and history of graphic design. At the end of that first year in your 3-year program, the faculty who have been working with you the whole year reviews the 3-year grad's full year of work to discuss the scope of the work. We really are looking for patterns of thought and making that emerge out of all of the formal work that you've done and lead you into your second year in the program. These are just some shots of some typography sequence work, some grad form work. That's a self-portrait project on the right. The grad form courses introduce you to tools and platforms that you may not have worked with. You get to design your very own font, perhaps mess around with processing and working with units to create typographic form. So all in all, it's a view of the whole work of the whole class at that end of the first year. At the same time, Grad Seminar 1, which we call Critical Issues in Graphic Design, mixes the incoming 2-year people along with the 3-year students so that everyone begins their time at RISD together. And this really helps to honor all points of entry into grad study here. And it builds a sense of context also for critical thought and practice in graphic design. In the first semester, if you're entering as a 2-year person and your first semester of your second year as a 3-year person, we have the first of the core studios. Grad Studio 1, which I've called Graphic Response, merges the 3-year track in your second year with a new incoming class. And this really starts to build the thesis cohort that will go forward. And it mixes varying skills and interests, talents, and experience. Some from professional practice are joining with 3-year people who were journalists or something. So in grad studios 1 and 2, which are fall and spring, we give these common design briefs to everybody, but they're meant to provoke really diverse individual exploration of content across varied graphic forms, and I'll show you some examples. One of the very first projects that we do in that class is called Atlas, and it's just about a 3-week project. We send people out into Providence to gather a lot of things according to a list of tasks. Then the goal is to design 16 pages, which we look at individually. It's kind of based on the questions of who are we and where are we? People really work together to choose the cover options and then ultimately to sequence a mini version of the book along the floor, which then becomes the sequence for the printed book on the right. And here's just a medley of the past years of them. We're waiting for this year's version to come back from the printer. But you can see a kind of diverse outcome. There was also a digital version of the Atlas, which we did during the COVID year, 2020, and it also tracked to the fact that it was a census year. So we gave pairs of students a census tract to go and explore together. And in this case, this couple of people went to an area that's a very wealthy neighborhood, but it also has a beautiful old cemetery in it. And they walked through and just made note of all of the kinds of language that are on the mortuary statuary and stones. A second project in the Grad Studio 1 course is really about primary object research. We really believe in kind of invoking content out of the history of forms and things in the world. So it starts with the Providence Public Library's special collections with rare objects like this volume of Piranesi's original etchings of Trajan's column in Rome. And the grads are asked to produce these 10 plates that analyze their collection's object formally and conceptually. And all of this is meant to lead to a longer narrative project that can be in any form and branch off into any content. Cuneiform is another one of the original objects, which starts to branch off into code and AR and so forth. This is one of the crazier ones. It was a fortune-telling sheet that came with tea packaging that Michelle, who had a really great sense of humor, analyzed as being like the Italian restaurant colors and then became a kind of circular motif for a psychic pizza. It's a long story. Another example is Zoe learning that some of these abolitionist pamphlets from the Civil War era had been printed on archivally stable fabrics, which moved her to do her plates on fabric. And then for her longer project, she extended that to create these banners that she produced and then cited on campus. This is a stairway that leads from Market Square at the bottom, which is where the slave trade happened in Providence. And then coming back up the stairs, it leads to Benefit Street, which is where John Brown and other wealthy slave-owning people lived. He was huge in the triangle trade. Last year, we used the John Hay Library of Special Collections. This project also, by the way, is just meant to introduce you to the resources here in Providence, both on the RISD campus and Brown campus. And Deb's source book was from 1609, an incredible thing, The Feminine Monarchy or the History of Bees. And those are her plates up above, but it really led her to start to think about notions of the hive mind and then ultimately gossip across these different forms. So she took every opportunity to explore gossip using typography, image research, reso printing, and even machine knitting and cross-stitching by hand. Just a beautiful medley of forms, the comprehensive book of research, um, a typeface with varied resolutions that's meant to be knitted. Um, she created usable cross-stitch patterns and also hand-knitted samples of the forms she created. So really in the spirit of make as much as you can to get your idea uh, fully embodied. She did a great job. So in the spring semester, the second core studio, Modes of Discourse, kind of picks up where the fall left off. Continuing to build the designer's understanding of sequence, rhetoric, and metaphor, and then sight also. So the course cultures the interpretive and narrative skills that designers need to communicate across multiple methods, modes of making, and contexts. And I'll just show some of the work from that class. Serena paid homage to Agnes Pelton's transcendentalist paintings using code. And her eventual abstract for her thesis, Crossover Logics, explained what she was doing in all of this kind of work. She says, I pair machined forms with human gestures to bridge the duality between computer and human logics, the rational and emotional, and the measurable and unmeasurable aspects of human experience. I generate a poetic friction between the hard instrumentality of data logic and the intimacy of internal logic. Kim explored internet wormholes. I mean, these are the same class, very different directions, which led to many experiments, including this zine, The Weird Absurd Web. Elliot, let me see if I can activate this. Elliot cited his project Various Flora in a neglected RISD museum garden space, including these AR visualizations of possible life forms and his own musical compositions called Music for Gardens, a kind of homage to Brian Eno's Music for Airports. Rebecca displayed her D and reconstructed books in the RISD Fleet Library, another one of our beautiful resources. Vishaka performed their work in the Edna Lawrence Nature Lab, creating new autobiographical specimens within the existing context, talking about her home in India. At the same time, you're taking these core courses, you can take electives in graphic design, grad studies, commons, interdisciplinary, studio and seminar courses, digital plus media research clusters, or other cross-listed courses from other disciplines and formal practices. If you're really looking at RISD, find out what kinds of courses we offer. Look at them not only in those places, but in theory and history of art and design, nature, culture, and sustainability studies, global arts and cultures, and teaching and learning in art and design, which incidentally offers a certificate program in teaching. Brown University courses are also open to RISD grads. It's just a matter of getting registered for them. The grad elective being offered right now behind me in the conference room is called Variable, taught by Kelsey Elder, one of our full-time faculty. Kelsey taught it in 2021 and now again in 2025, now that he's returned to RISD, thank God. Other grad electives have been data narratives taught by Ruben Fisher-Baum, who did all of the data narrative stuff for the Washington Post for many years. And Source, based on coding and programming with Eric Lee. And that was, double meaning of source as source code, but also research sources. That's just an example of some variable stuff that's going on in class right now. That's actually Deb's, the B person, that's actually her variable work. Newly Formed is another elective offered by Christopher and Kathleen Sloboda. There's also, as I said, these cross-disciplinary electives like digital materiality, which is offered by the textiles program. We actually share the floor here with textiles. In this case, Jenny produced a family narrative in the form of a digitally embroidered kimono. Grads can also pursue independent projects and collaborations. Jack from New Orleans and Austa from Iceland compared their coastal origins in this large format publication. That takes us then to what divides the semesters. It's a 5-week session called Wintersession, and it's a time to take courses outside of your major or to propose independent projects that allow you to work at your own pace and on your own concepts. So grads can also teach during Wintersession from a host of these introductory type and graphic design courses that we offer to proposing experimental courses of your own making. And that threads through the grad studies office in a really coherent process. Just some examples of the kinds of things that have happened over the years in Wintersession. In this case, Mark really wanted to just get outside, and he designed contraptions to create analog wind drawings like this one using sail material. And then at the same time he was doing these outside things, he was taking a digital plus media emerging digital course, and he developed the means to output both digital drawings and dynamic wind mapping data. It's a great time to pick up or concentrate on a skill that you know you need and want to have in your tool set. Lewis developed his dream, dream journal app during Wintersession in a UI UX course. And by the end of the course, the whole system had been fully realized and was ready for use. And I actually wish I had it. It also offers some time for play and exploration, just using new tools and technology. Ben Denzer used the digital embroidery machinery available to us for his currency variations, which are quite hilarious. The grads who taught also mounted their students' work in our Design Center Commons, which is our main building for undergrads. It's another space for GD exhibitions and lectures by visiting designers and others. Graduate Seminar 2, which Paul Soulelis has so ably taught in the spring semester, parallels Grad Studio 2. And it's meant to establish thesis territories that emerge out of formal explorations, research, and writing. And the results are compiled into a thesis compendium that is kind of a thoughtful document for you to have in hand as you enter your final thesis year. And these are printed forms, but others have used the web. In this case, Kit Sun Lee, who used the web with as a reading mechanism with links to research articles and a keyword user log that allowed for non-linear reading. Really smart. I'll show you another piece by Kit. So the thesis process, which begins in the fall of your final year, advances that seminar foundational work through visual form and critical writing in the final studio core courses. Thesis 1 in the fall and 2 in the spring. So the way we talk about the thesis at RISD is that it's not one big culminating single project, but it's a consistent approach to persistent ideas, a kind of line of inquiry that emerges across multiple forms, building a thesis body of work over time. So the thesis 1 and 2 span the final year of the program, but really the thesis takes on its body through all of the work you do, including other electives and independent projects, and of course, the core courses that you've already taken. I just want to see if I can do this. This was a presentation in Thesis 1 by Kit back when we had them give position presentations.
Everybody, my name's Kit Sun Lee, and welcome to my crib, the internet.
And I'm going to scrub forward to show just how that talk was meant to propose work to come in the thesis project, the thesis semester rather. And this was so perfectly paired with Kit's entire idea. So here we go.
Antagonism is both a condition of and approach to the network systems in which we are embroiled. How do we identify the threat actors? How do we lean into our emotional, personal, and system vulnerabilities to be hostile right back? How can I design adversarial interfaces and experiences where interactions become tools for thought? To this end, I'm beginning an inquiry into what I'm calling benware. Benware meaning benignant or even benevolent software. See, it's a malware symbol, but it's modified so it looks like two people shaking hands or a smiley face. Some benware projects I have coming up include DLC, or distance learning chalking, which is a computationally generated glyph system based on war chalking that helps students find open Wi-Fi access nodes. And there's also Fracture-Leet. That's a variable font illustrating the interpolation between 2014's Gamergate and online gamer spaces in general with the rise of QAnon and the alt-right.
All right, I'll stop there. Hopefully you could hear that. I'm pretty sure the sound works. So really, we talk about the thesis as a set of critical strategies for making work and for thinking about your own work and talking about the work of others. It can unpack a concept or phenomenon to interrogate and expose layers of meaning and embedded structures of power. The way that Everett traced the emoticon back to the minerals and energy it takes to produce it, again, using an interface to do so. Rebecca of the Deconstructed Books talked about her work as a discipline, or talked about graphic design rather, as a discipline rooted in work rather than a process that springs forth spontaneously from the creative imagination. She was always coming up with projects that dealt with real world people and real world things. She also designed the print materials for RISD's student-curated multidisciplinary exhibition Objects May Shift, which was at the Salon de Mobile, I believe is how you pronounce it, at the Milan Furniture Fair in April 2024. And I mention that just because opportunities come up for grads to really expand their, expand their skills and move into areas that they didn't know that they were going to move into. So from her abstract, she says, perform, produces a new organizational model that integrates live happenings, cross-disciplinary exchange, and self-publishing to consider not just the product of design, but also the conditions under which it is produced. I'm trying to read you some of these thesis abstracts to show you where things end up as an articulation of all the work that you've done while you're here. From Leanne's thesis abstract, she was working on notions of time and timekeeping. She says, year after year, we place more value on efficiency and productivity, underestimating smaller gestures of craft, care, and wonder. This emphasis directly affects the tools and structures that determine how and what we make. This is a project called Tide Machine, and it's a screensaver that pulls on data from tides across the world for real. And you can purchase it and have it on your own home computer. I have Narragansett Bay on mine at home, and it's like having a living thing on my screen. Making Time is the name of her thesis, is a practice that counters the urgency of now by unearthing approaches to break down, reimagine, and remake existing systems. So these are screens showing the same exact time, but all from different global areas. And it's a way that the thesis can actually be a living behavior of a single idea, which is a way to sort of think of it as a live thing. So the final expressions of the thesis are when it goes public, both in the form of a thesis book and in a group exhibition. So our graphic design grads collaborate on the concept and design of their part of the 19-discipline RISD MFA grad show. But first, they're doing a thesis book, which is a compendium, a compilation, an articulation, an expression, a performance of all of their thesis ideas and work. So throughout that process in the final year, there's a team of faculty thesis advisors and also a trio of visiting external critics that guide that development throughout the year. It culminates in the thesis book and work on view in that MFA review as well as the show. The thesis work also lives on beyond RISD that's important, and in the best sense can model an ongoing professional practice. So for me, the goal, oh, this, by the way, go to Ben Denzer's site and watch this. This is a gigantic thesis book signature page, photographed by a drone of people turning the page. His site will tell you more. I know I was in the middle of saying something. Anyway, so the final reviews are held in the Koffler Gallery with faculty advisors, external critics, and fellow grad students. Each person gets an area to populate with work. Each grad presents their thesis body of work for an open discussion. Here, Osmond Schuma is presenting his thesis work for Afrography, Scripting Futures Anchored in Culture and Community. And his abstract said, by integrating cultural objects into designs and everyday visual language, we can challenge and reverse the demonization imposed on African symbols by colonial narratives. So his thesis really represented like a very deep dive on a specific kind of making and visual language development. Kim Duck was, again, exploring wormholes. She said they exist as theory, fantasy, or proposition, an imagined space where paths are not always linear and realities alter. And her work really was a set of experiments in print and screen and interactive around that notion. The thesis book is present at the thesis reviews. That's her thesis book at the left, and that zine also that I referred to earlier. Tina Zhu's Modes of Seeing, Means of Telling demonstrates graphic design as a tool for investigation and interactive storytelling. And again, the thesis book is present at the review, and they're just beautiful, beautiful objects. So I want you to see them. 2 bound copies of the thesis book are required as a repository for the final thesis body of work. So copies of past thesis books are in the RISD Fleet Library. Some are on the shelves, open shelves, but most are in special collections where you can have them bring them out and you can sit with them. And here's just a couple spreads just to show that this is work that Vi did in Grad Studio 1 with the library project, which led her to develop a kind of synesthetic language and a sonic language, all leading to her thesis called Ethnographemes. Where can you see these theses? On something called digitalcommons.risd.edu. You can search by name, you can search by year. This was by year, showing all of the people in that year. And then on the right, I'm searching Tina's and finding it just under her name. The abstracts are there for you to read, so you can really kind of see how people articulate the variety of things they come up for their thesis. So finally, the grad show is the final piece to the thesis. It's a group show that includes work from all of RISD's grad programs on view in a large shared space. Each program designs its own small exhibition of thesis work within it. And I'm going to just slam through a bunch of years to show you how diverse the solutions have been to the very same design problem. So the range for curatorial approaches have ranged from this printed multiple where the thing was the thing, and then an archived, a website where you can see that in action and actually get to the individual work. Another year, there was a pop-up shop with designed pieces for sale, including a printed catalog of works in the show, shown there on the left. On the website, you could purchase the catalog. What was inside the catalog was a situated set of that same work set up in the white cube of the Koffler Gallery, but it turns out that wasn't totally simulated digitally. Another class opted for this really shallow alcove of synchronized screens, and they were all turning pages at the same time. The website then became an articulation of that same idea, where you could then go into like Ramike Forbes, who's the art director at Jacobin Magazine now. And you could go in and sort of see what kind of thesis projects these people had done. Another class used a plinth with thesis books embedded inside of the curatorial statement, all the jackets lined up with that statement. And they just didn't do anything with the walls except put up individual glyphs that referred people to that book. Leanne's class, who did the tide clock, did working hours. And this is just to show that the thesis cohort really collaborates on developing a theme that can draw together their diverse thesis approaches. They even had a timestamp for viewers to enter. The opposite side of that wall was a kind of process wall that showed a lot of work. And then the interior had this circular motif with work all around it. The thesis books are always on view at the show, so come to this year's thesis show at the end, May 20th or something like that. In the center of the floor, this thing actually slowly rotated. So they're even calling back the cover of the Atlas, which was their very first collaborative project from their very first semester where they formed their MFA cohort. The 2019 was the last time that they made a kind of bespoke website for their show. 2020 was the COVID year. Everything moved online, and the RISD Museum took over hosting the grad show site. 2020, that's 2021, 2022. 2023, Serena and Zach Scheinfeld worked together to gather all this data from all of the grads across all things. So it's worth visiting this site to see how it works. Things rotate in different configurations. In 2024, the thesis group papered the space with pages from a printable multiple, which was also there to take away. It also featured links to individual thesis works on a separate website instead of mounting the work in the limited space, and it's supersaturated.net. 2024's website, 2025, and again, 2026 is underway, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm at the end, so I'm just going to show you that the RISD GD MFA alumni are a vibrant network and keep in touch with each other all over the world. This is kind of an annual thing we do at the New York Art Book Fair, is we kind of try to gather after or around that event. Here's the very beginning before everybody got there in beautiful, beautiful New York. But talk to these people. They can tell you a lot about their experience and a lot about RISD. So just a reminder, the exhibition websites are viewable online. The links are within this talk. View the thesis books on the Digital Commons. You can also come and see them in person. You can make an appointment to come visit the campus through admissions, but you can also talk to Amy Doyle, who's the program assistant here, and drop by and visit. RISD GD alumni, again, are everywhere, and they can tell you about their experience, so reach out to them. This was this year's group at the book fair. Be sure to also check out our departmental site, gd.risd, which keeps up to date with what's going on here departmentally, and also the RISD grads. I mean, the grads have started their own Instagram account too. That's it. Thank you. And are there questions?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bethany.
My
Yes.
pleasure.
Feel free now to start typing your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom. That is the little character in the Zoom toolbar to the right of the chat. We will try to answer as many as we can with the remaining time that we have. All right, we have a question right away, Bethany. Someone's saying, thank you so much for a thorough walkthrough of the program. Question one, what would you say that the personal explorations for thesis in the MFA lead to after school? Not specific career paths per se, more so how does the critical thinking get applied realistically into market and community post-grad?
Very good question, and a logical one because it's a big investment of time and treasure to come to grad school. Tina, who was doing the investigative practice, for instance, is working at the New York Times and just did a digital storytelling thing on starting a small restaurant. You could probably find that. I don't have a link to it, but it is a direct match to what she was interested in doing in her thesis and working with Ruben and data narratives and all kinds of other things came to bear. So that's one really solid outcome. Um, God, without going back through all of the slides, I can't really, but I mean, the thesis is sort of meant to magnetize, if you will, the kind of work you want to do. And whether that the market recognizes that or not is always a mystery to me. But it's remarkable how many times it actually tracks to the kinds of things you were thinking about here. Sophie Mascatello was just here giving a design talk, and actually said, I didn't know it at the time. My professors kept saying the thesis work you do begets the kind of work you want to do. And she said, as I'm showing you this, it's pretty much exactly what I've always been thinking about. So I won't spend any more time on that, but I mean, Paul, pipe up. There's many other examples out there.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of anything specific, but just also to mention that the different career paths that one could take leaving the program are as varied as everybody who comes in. But typically, people end up either in large agencies, in small boutique firms. They end up starting their own businesses, or they end up teaching. And that critical thinking and making just goes with you, whatever your path will be.
Perfect. I just dropped a link to the Career Center website. They detail for each degree program the different career paths and the employers that our students have gone on to. So check that out. And there's also we're doing a session with the director of the Career Center tomorrow. And I dropped the link for that webinar in the chat. There was a second part to that first question as well. Are there electives for if somebody is interested in entrepreneurship?
Hmm.
I I think actually you're identifying a gap in the sort of pragmatic needs of graduate programs. I think that we grad program directors have talked about needing a professional practice set of courses. So that would fit there. We don't offer it in graphic design per se.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. There was a question in the chat. How do students connect typographic experimentation with broader cultural or conceptual ideas in the program?
Mm.
Paul?
That's such a great question because I think that it kind of answers itself. It is what we do. I would say that that's kind of at the core of our program is how does language, which can be expressed in many different ways, but particularly typographic language, how can that be used to express, to communicate, share, um, and that can take, the form of any cultural or conceptual ideas that students are bringing into the program or that are emerging out of the work that they're doing. So I think it's exactly that bridge that we're trying to practice, to reinforce, and to just make space for. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would add it's not purely stylistic expertise. It's actually how is that typography behaving, to communicate the message that it's communicating in the context that we find it on the
Mhm.
web or in a book or in a brand, an
Mhm.
identity.
Mhm.
Somebody's asking in regards to visiting campus, are there any GD MFA presentations at the end of the semester, and the end of this semester, that a prospective student could drop in for?
Hmm.
Our thesis reviews in December are not open to the public. They're just meant for the advisory groups and external critics and faculty to meet with each grad because it's really their mid-trajectory. So it would be an undue burden on them to think they had to perform, a final situation. So I guess the short answer is not in the grad program. And individual classes have their own final reviews, but people
Hmm.
aren't, you know,
Yeah,
permitted.
I mean, and I would add to that, we encourage and welcome you to come by, to drop by, to visit the campus, and definitely let Amy in our department know, and we can arrange to meet you and have a tour, etc. But there's kind of, yeah, I would say no guarantee at the very end of the semester that even the undergrad courses and presentations that, sometimes they're closed, sometimes they're open, but it's difficult to predict that.
At the end of the year, though, the thesis exhibition is open to the public. So
Oh
if
yeah.
you're in the neighborhood, that's great to go and check out. That's at the RISD, Rhode Island Convention Center. And it's free too. I believe you can just walk right in and
Oh,
check it
yeah.
out.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for a wonderful session. It was fantastic. Is the master's program a good one to attend right out of undergrad school? I'm a communication design student and I want to earn my specialization in graphic design.
Paul and I could both answer that, but
Mhm.
my pretty clear response is to recommend like definitely 1 year at least, but 2 years of gaining life experience and professional experience and kind of like cutting the umbilicus, if you will, from being a student before coming back to be a student. It's a very different kind of context. I find that people who come directly out of undergrad sometimes can't, I don't know, I don't know how to articulate it, but it's sort of like a dependence on the structure of assignments and things like that, less than a kind of a real purpose for coming. When you do apply, I mean, we do ask you all to do a statement of intent, a statement of purpose. Why RISD? Why now? And as much as I can appreciate people wanting to get on with there's something to be said about even just being an intern for a year, in a professional practice where you get the rhythms and the necessities and frustrations of real life, right? So that coming back to grad school is a more conscious choice. That's just my opinion.
Oh yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I would say it's generally the approach from the department. Yeah, I would agree.
Next question. How does RISD support students exploring alternative publishing or experimental narrative formats?
Mm.
Paul, Paul
Okay,
Solello.
another great question, Dimitri. Yeah, again, I would say that this is something that's present in almost every class, every course, in the sense that, as a student here, this goes for the undergrads and the graduate students, you're in a position of wanting to make your ideas and your work real. And what better way to do that than to experiment with making it public, sharing it with the people around you. And so we're constantly encouraging different techniques, tactics, strategies for publishing. And sometimes that can be somewhat conventional. Make a zine, make a book, make something that looks like a familiar form. Other times it can get wacky. It can be unexpected, surprising in all kinds of great ways and sort of stretch our idea of what publishing is. But I would say that that's throughout our program. Yeah, very much part of who we are.
Great. Are
Yeah, and
there
I would
any?
add, I would add
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Chris and Kathleen Sloboda, who teach here, also
Mhm.
have drawdown books and often publish the outcomes of the newly formed class in in publishable form. And we just have a very strong, I mean, Paul has a strong connection to the New York Art Book Fair. That I was on the board of Printed Matter at one point. We have a deep respect for experimental publishing and individual publishing, while at the same time saying that is one aspect of what we do.
Great. Are there any hands-on experience opportunities like teaching assistantships for students within the program?
Yes, teaching assistantships can be granted as part of a kind of financial aid help, but also it's a key opportunity to work alongside our full-time faculty in the undergrad curriculum, which is fantastic. And to work with the best students, honestly. RISD undergrads consistently blow my mind. So you really, if you have any intention about teaching, that teaching assistantship opportunity plus the ability to actually teach a course here is really special. It really defines us, I would say.
Great. This next question, is it possible to contact the professor personally and ask further questions related to the research before enrolling?
Which professor, which research would be
Yeah.
my follow-up.
Yes.
I mean, I guess my tendency is to say likely not, just because our energies are so like focused on the people who are here. You know what I mean? If a professor is doing a particular kind of research that you'd like to know more about, by all means, right. See what kinds of contact you can make.
Yeah, you can certainly reach out. I think all of us are, all of the faculty in our department are at risd.edu. I think we're all listed there. I think our emails are even there.
Yep.
You're certainly, yeah, encouraged to reach out, but like Bethany said, no guarantee that anyone's going to reply in time.
Yeah.
Perfect. Are there expectations ever made for entrance in the two-year program despite not holding a BFA? This person, their degree includes 2 minors in fine art and graphic design, and their resume includes 8 years of formal graphic design work. Their
Wow.
concern is not about potential value of the instruction, but rather the financial cost of an additional year in the program.
We hear you 100%. What we recommend is on applying to apply to signal in your statement of intent that just what you just said, and to say, I'm applying to the 2-year program. I could be considered for the 3-year program, right? I mean, when we look at transcripts, which is another part of your package, we really look to see how the things that you've studied track to what our own BFA in graphic design includes, just as a sort of benchmark. And I think that increasingly we might find, I don't know. It's actually my last year doing this, but I would hope that there would be a way to augment with a course or two if you've really demonstrated that you've mastered typography, about graphic design history, and your work demonstrates a high level of talent, And so write in your statement, show us the work, and then we could have that conversation.
Great, thank you. Next question. I come from a studio art design background, but is interested to some extent in every graduate program RISD has to offer. I live in Berkeley, California, but would love to come for the thesis shows and wondering if there is a specific 1 to 2 week period in which master's thesis shows are held. Yes, it's as Bethany had mentioned, around May 20th. The
I
exact date.
believe it opens on Wednesday, May 20th, and it's open through our commencement, which is Saturday, the May 30th, I believe.
Mhm.
I believe it's the 30th, and then the show comes down on May 31st. Are you looking at a calendar?
I'm looking at the academic calendar. Let me see
Okay.
here. So
I think
RISD commencement this year is going to be on Saturday, the 30th, late.
Right, right.
Yep,
So the show is up through Saturday the 30th. It opens, so it's open for
the
10
week
days.
before.
Yeah,
10
Okay,
days.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, and I would say, by the way, if you were going to come anytime during that, I mean, come anytime, of course, the show will be open. But that opening night of May 20th is really, it's a joyous evening. The convention center is filled with people and families, and students that you could talk to, et cetera. So if you could make it, that's a great moment.
I
And,
love
and
that you're interested in every grad program. You know,
It's a hard.
that just know that like if you were to come to graphic design, we have people taking a ceramics course right now, um, textiles stuff. There's a computer and technology concentration, CTC, where people are doing that. There's a sound lab. There's all kinds of ways. RISD plays all the instruments, basically. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, just like Rebecca Wilkinson said. It's about work, work in context with real people and things. So consider that.
in admissions, we always do a special campus tour for the opening of the thesis show. So it's like an abbreviated campus show, and then we walk prospective students down to the convention center for the opening. We get there right at the when the doors are opening. So,
Oh, cool.
Right.
yep. We have a thank you from Dimitri. Thank you, Bethany and Paul. Just want
Sure.
to say that out loud. All right. Perfect. And then I think we have time for one more question. We have a hard stop at 3 o'clock today. This person saying, thank you for a wonderful session. Does the MFA program accept RISD BFA graphic design students?
Mancoon, hi. So great to see that you're in here. Incredible. Yeah, it's been known to happen. Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. We don't have any rule about not accepting BFA
Yeah.
students. So yes, the application process is open to you.
Yeah, and I mean it's an interesting question because it can be coming from a place of familiarity or a desire to return to something that you're comfortable with. Um, just consider that you would be working with all the same faculty that you worked with as an undergrad. And that's just something to think about. I mean,
Yeah.
I accepted somebody last year who ultimately was unable to make it, who had gone through the undergrad program. There's no reason why not to entertain that notion. I would just like really think about your reasons for doing it. Um, and I mean, it might be because this is the best program. I don't know. That's a possibility.
Okay.
It is a
And
different, it's a different experience for sure.
And I see that there's a lot of questions coming in. And as I mentioned, that we have a hard stop at 3 o'clock. So if we don't
Fun.
get to your question, you can feel free to email admissions@risd.edu. And I'll be either answer it myself or I'll redirect to Bethany or Paul. Real quick, I can help answer this question about scholarships. Every incoming graduate student is eligible for fellowships and assistantships. They are awarded based on need and merit. In order to be considered for fellowships, you need to complete the RISD institutional financial aid form. This will be in your applicant status portal under the financial aid tab. This is for international and US students. As I mentioned, international and US students are eligible for fellowships and assistantships. They vary, so we can't give an average on that. But I can say that over 90% of grad students received a fellowship of some kind last year. But yeah, the biggest thing is just filling out that institutional financial aid form. And if you're a US student, filling out the FAFSA, and both of those by the February 1st deadline. All right. And I think we have a great closing question here. What is your favorite part of the program? What are you proud to offer as designers?
Oh, I'm going to be honest, it's the people. It's the people. And the
That was
fact
my answer
that
too.
we don't teach people what to think, but how to think. And we don't teach them what to make, but how they can make a million things, and
Mhm.
originating from ideas and authentic selves. So I look at all these people in this picture who represent years, multiple years of graduating, and it's really that network that sustains me and fellow faculty and just the high quality of the work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was going to be my answer as well, specifically our faculty. When you say, what are you proud to offer to designers? I'm so proud of my colleagues and the incredibly eclectic and varied and just wondrous range of expertise and passions and personalities and characters that we have in our department and that we get to share with you. So
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we just have another comment here. Such a valuable presentation. Thank you, Bethany and Paul. You covered all the questions that this person had.
Yay.
Perfect. Well, that is quite the accomplishment. That will do it for us. We've answered just about all of them. And I think there was one question that I just wrote to send us an email at admissions@risd.edu, and we'll get that answered for you. But I just want to thank Bethany and Paul for your time today. This session was recorded. We are compiling all of the open house recordings onto a YouTube playlist, and we'll be sharing that out with everybody who was registered for an open house session. But feel free to email admissions directly for that YouTube playlist link, and I can share that with you. But yeah, that will do it for us.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jen. Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
being the
yeah, thank you for
interlocutor.
hosting.
Perfect. And we look forward to seeing everybody's application on January
Good
5th.
luck, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.